Welcome back to another Thanks-Free video, where your brain gets a full workout without even breaking a sweat or leaving your couch. Today, we're diving into one of history's greatest mysteries, conspiracy theories, and dinner table debates. Why did the Roman Empire fall? And more importantly, could it happen to us? Now, don't worry. You don't need to know Latin, own a toga, or be on a marble bus to enjoy this. Just bring your curiosity and maybe a snack, preferably not grapes on a silver platter. Let's get into it. The Roman Empire was one of the most powerful, sophisticated civilizations the world has ever seen. It lasted over 500 years as an empire, and even longer if you count the Republic before it. At its height, Rome controlled huge parts of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. They built aqueducts, paved roads, designed cities, and invented ways to complain about politics that still hold up on Twitter. But then, poof. Gone. Not overnight, but steadily, painfully, and in ways that still have historians arguing to this day. So why did the Roman Empire fall? Short answer, it's complicated. Long answer, well, that's what the next few minutes are for. Let's start with one of the biggest and most agreed upon culprits, internal decay. Rome got lazy. That's the blunt version. Over time, the empire became bloated and inefficient. The Senate was corrupt. Emperors were often chosen not for their leadership skills, but for their ability to not die immediately. And the economy? Inflation, debt, over-reliance on slave labor, it was a mess. Rome also had a serious too-big-to-manage problem. At its peak, the empire stretched from the British Isles to Egypt. That's a lot of territory to manage without Wi-Fi or Google Maps. Communication could take weeks, and coordinating armies, taxes, and laws was like trying to play chess on 10 boards at once, while being stabbed. Which brings us to the military. Rome's once mighty legions were increasingly filled with non-Roman mercenaries, people loyal not to the empire, but to their paycheck. Think of it as outsourcing your defense to people who may or may not care if you get conquered. And speaking of being conquered, let's talk about the barbarians. No, not cavemen with clubs. We're talking about real, organized tribes like the Visigoths, Vandals, Huns, and Ostrogoths. These weren't just raiders, they were often displaced peoples trying to find new land and survive. Rome had been dealing with these groups for centuries, sometimes fighting them, sometimes absorbing them, and sometimes inviting them in. Yes. Rome literally invited some of these tribes in to settle, farm, and serve in the military. It worked until it didn't. In 410 CE, the Visigoths, led by Alaric, actually sacked Rome. Imagine the shock. This was like New York, London, and Paris rolled into one being ransacked. It was the first time in 800 years Rome had fallen to an enemy. That'll ruin your Tuesday. Another major factor? Division. In 285 CE, Emperor Diocletian split the empire into east and west to make it easier to govern. Smart move, maybe. Because when things got bad, instead of one empire supporting itself, it had to deal with two halves trying to survive separately. The Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, managed to stick around for another 1,000 years. But the western half? It was toast by 476 CE. And while we're on the topic of toasty empires, let's talk about lead poisoning. Yup. Some historians argue that Rome's use of lead pipes for water delivery may have contributed to widespread health problems, including infertility and cognitive decline. Now, this theory isn't universally accepted, but come on, drinking from pipes made of literal poison? Maybe not the best move. Even if the plumbing was otherwise brilliant. Then there's the cultural decay argument. Some people blame moral decline, saying Romans partied too hard, indulged too much, and lost the good old-fashioned values that made them strong. While it's true that late Roman society was pretty extra, gladiator fights, gold leaf on everything, and emperors declaring their horses as senators, it's a stretch to say bad behavior alone toppled an empire. But hey, if your horse starts running for office, maybe keep an eye on things. We also can't ignore economic instability. Rome had trouble collecting taxes. Wealth inequality was massive. The rich got richer, the poor got angrier, and the middle class basically evaporated. Sound familiar? Hold that thought, we're getting there. Add to that over-reliance on slavery, which not only caused ethical issues but made the economy rigid. Slaves did most of the manual labor, which discouraged technological innovation. Why build machines when you have human ones? And finally, religion. When Christianity spread through the empire, it fundamentally changed the social and political landscape. Some historians argue it helped soften Roman martial values. Others say it unified the population morally. Either way, by the time Christianity became the state religion, Rome was already in decline. It wasn't the cause of the fall, but it was definitely part of the story. So, all together now, internal corruption, military decline, economic collapse, political instability, external invasion, and a whole lot of bad luck. Kind of like baking a disaster cake with every ingredient you can think of. Now, could it happen to us? It's the question that keeps political theorists, history buffs, and nervous millennials up at night. And while we're obviously not predicting the fall of modern civilization, at least not in this video, there are some eerie parallels. Let's run through them. Massive empires with global influence? Check. Crippling wealth inequality? Check. Political polarization, social unrest, overextension of resources? You bet. Climate challenges, supply chain vulnerabilities, and, dare I say it, too many reality shows about gold digging and rich kids with pet lions? Triple check. Of course, today's world has massive advantages that Rome didn't. We have instantaneous communication, global trade networks, science, medicine, pizza delivery in under 30 minutes. We also have democratic institutions, in theory, and the ability to learn from past mistakes. Key word, ability. The fall of Rome wasn't caused by one thing, and our modern world won't be either, if it ever happens. But the story of Rome reminds us that no civilization, no matter how powerful, is invincible. Complacency, division, and ignoring problems until they're too big to fix, that's what really brings an empire down. If you're still with us and you haven't started hoarding canned food or learning Latin, don't worry. We're not doomed. But history has a funny way of repeating itself, when no one's paying attention. So stay informed. Stay involved. And hey, while you're at it, stay subscribed. That's right, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button like a Roman legionnaire charging into Gaul. Click that bell like you're sounding the alarm on an invading horde. And give us a thumbs up, because unlike the Colosseum, this channel runs on support, not gladiators. Thanks for watching another episode of Think Spree, where we make you just a little bit smarter, and occasionally paranoid. See you next time, and remember, history is less about the past and more about understanding the future before it smacks us in the face. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to install some lead-free plumbing. Just in case.